Analisa 6 here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to bring you the March 2024 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Cancer for Sun and Rising placements. Hi, Cancer. Welcome to March. We are in Pisces season as we get the month started, and we have a lot of energy in the mutable water sign of Pisces. So, Cancer is cardinal water. That's what you are, cardinal water sign, and cardinal is initiatory. Pisces is mutable water, and mutable is adaptive and expansive. So, water likes water. Cancer and Pisces complement each other, but they do things in very different ways. The area of the chart that is highlighted for Cancer during Pisces season is the area that represents our values and belief systems, our desire to explore the meaning of life through higher education and learning, travel, cultural studies, and also spiritual pursuits like astrology and religion and studying spiritual doctrines, things like that. The planets that we have in Pisces starting out March are Saturn, the sun, which obviously the sun's a star, I know, but in astrology, we just call everything a planet. Saturn, the sun, Mercury, and Neptune. So a lot of energy in Pisces. And so if you feel like you've been on a quest, an internal and external quest for truth, knowledge, experiences, that's really emphasized right now. Having it in Pisces, there is a really big emphasis on spirituality, maybe the meaning of life, or examining kind of your values and beliefs and what they've been in the past, while also um, kind of acknowledging the direction that they're headed in. Are you expanding upon things? Like, do you hold the same beliefs and you're just expanding upon them, or are you starting to feel like there's a shift? With Saturn here, we might also look to a teacher, or we might also want to teach the things that we're learning, or it's a teacher student energy when Saturn is in the ninth house. So we are the teacher and we are the student, and we're seeking to do that. We're seeking to kind of disseminate our wisdom and our knowledge, but we're also open to receiving that as well. Mercury in Pisces here too. There's a lot of ability to maybe have channeling or downloading experiences with spirituality. So, like, an example would be, let's say that you're getting a lot of intuitive hits, like you'll kind of have a thought about a person or place or thing, and then something synchronistic will happen that kind of reaffirms what you were feeling or thinking. You have that thought about that person, and then all of a sudden they're there. That literally just happened to me the other day. It was so bizarre. I was at a concert in Long Beach, seeing a band I haven't seen since I was 15, and was there with some friends, and it was early, like the show was early, but it was also early in the night or in the day, I guess, where not a lot of people had come in yet. And I saw somebody in my peripheral that reminded me of somebody that I knew, and I looked and it wasn't that person. And I was like, well, why would that person be here? Like, this person doesn't live in LA. They don't live in Long Beach. They live in another country. Like, why would this person be at this show in Long Beach randomly? And then I go outside like 15 minutes later, and that person's literally walking in the door. And I was just like, I was just thinking of you because I thought I saw you here and it wasn't you, but now here you are. What are you doing in Los Angeles? And it was just really random. And so it was one of those things where it was like I had this weird little inkling, and then it happened. And that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. I think it happens to a lot of us. But when this energy is heightened in this area of the chart, I think those things can be even more heightened because we're open. Mercury and Pisces too, like, we're open to the spiritual realm more readily. Like, it's a easier flow, but because you're a Cancer dominant person, it's even easier because it's the Mercury and Pisces energy. All the Pisces energy is making a trine to Cancer. So it's kind of like opening up your spiritual receptors and those downloads, and it makes it more of an easy channel. Like, it's kind of swimming to you in a flow, in a flowing way. And in the ninth house, the ninth house rules a lot of that connection to spirituality. So it makes it even more easily accessible to us. So, exploring those things is really positive, but you do need to practice some healthy levels of discernment, because through this, if we're seeking a guru, a teacher to disseminate their wisdom or their knowledge, we want to be really discerning about who we're accepting that from. I was having a conversation, I'm in recovery, this is on the Sober Curator, and I'm new to AA. I've been a dry alcoholic up until November, meaning that I've been doing sobriety. I've been raw dogging sobriety. I haven't been in a program. And I joined AA in November because I felt like I needed something like that. And I was talking to my sponsor last night about how I've done a lot of different spiritual, like I've been in a lot of different spiritual circles, and I've read a lot of spiritual doctrine and texts. And there's a lot of different belief systems, but they all kind of have similar ways that they do things. And after I've read so many things, and I also watch a lot of stuff about religion and cults and different kinds of groups. It's like, as a Sagittarius rising and Pisces moon and full ninth house person, those things are really interesting to me. And I was telling her, I was like, now that I have more of this knowledge about what the red flags are in a lot of religions, cults, spiritual organizations, self-help organizations, like now I know what the red flags are to look for. I feel more comfortable being in AA because I know what not to I know what not to do. Like I know what not to listen to or what not to be influenced by. And AA has done a really good job of not doing those things that are problematic. The structure of AA, there's no hierarchy. So that alone, is like super appealing to me, because if there's a hierarchical structure, that usually means that there's going to be something kind of messed up about the organization, especially when it comes to spirituality. So we were talking about all of that and just how, there's a rule in AA and the way that things get passed down. And it's really common in spiritual circles and in religion for that too. Like there's a way that things have to be taught and passed down. And I think that those traditions are really special. I think they can be really great, but in certain, circles like cults, we know that those things can also be really detrimental and really messed up and really harmful. And I think a lot about Nixium, like I watched The Vow, I was really into watching The Vow and that whole story, I'm so fascinated by it because I see myself as someone that if I had known what Nixium was, I could afford to go to something like that. There was a time in my life where I could see my mom and I going to one of those workshops, and like really enjoying it and having this, whole thing with the self-help aspect of it. And because, I'm into those types of things. Like I like self-help and I like the whole self-improvement, kind of journey. It's what brought me to astrology, right? It was kind of this quest for improvement. And I'm bringing this up and I'm talking a lot about it because there's a lot of these placements in the Cancer horoscope for March. And so you're having a lot of this energy of wanting to expand, wanting to grow spiritually. And you need to be really discerning about who you seek that from, because there's so many amazing, great people and great schools of thought, but there's also equally a lot of schools of thought that are doing similar things with bad intentions, or where the road starts to get dark and kind of lead into like this Nixium territory, right? And I'm just using Nixium as an example, but I think that that was one of the things that's really sad about watching those stories, is that we're all kind of at various times in life on a quest for meaning and for trying to become, I mean, not everybody, obviously there's plenty of people who don't care about this stuff, but a lot of us that are like, if you're watching an astrology video, chances are that you have some longing or desire for self-improvement, or understanding yourself in a deeper level, or understanding the universe, or the why, what's going on, why are we here, all of those kinds of things. And I think that it's a slippery slope, because I don't think anybody can really answer that for you. I don't think that any religion or any doctrine can really, I mean, there's plenty of people in religions that claim to know, but I don't think, you keep peeling back those layers and there's still more questions. So I don't think that we really know ever. I don't think we're supposed to, just because the why, like you get down to nothing, there's still more why of the nothing, right? Your brain glitches out. So I think that, it's important to be really discerning about who you listen to, who you give your power to on those quests. Don't ever give your power away, essentially. So, um, yeah, so that's a big theme for Cancer. Let's go ahead and move on from that because I think we get the gist of what I'm saying, and I can talk in circles too much. So we have Venus and Mars in Aquarius for the beginning of March, and the area that that's hitting for the chart for Cancer is the area that has to do with shared resources through family inheritance. It could also be shared resources through a marital partner or somebody that we are cohabitating with. This also can highlight investments, loans, any kind of money that we are tied up in through assets, like a trust, our, investment accounts, life insurance policies, all that kind of stuff is highlighted. Venus highlighting this, maybe we're doing something with that, there's some kind of focus on that. Mars here also could bring up some conflict or some challenges around that as well. We also here, this is the area that has to do with sex as well. So sex is highlighted, our relationship to sex. This is also the area that has to do with death. That's why inheritance falls here, because what we acquire through death is also highlighted. Wills, things like that are highlighted for Cancer. So if any of those things have been a theme for you, like that's continuing to be a theme for the beginning of the month before those energies shift. Pluto just entered Aquarius fully. We had Pluto dancing back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius last year. And then in January, it finally fully stationed to Aquarius. And so we're going to have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years, and it's going to be hitting this area of the Cancer horoscope. So that whole area, like marriage, death, sex, rebirth, like this creation kind of energy through the death, sex, rebirth cycle, and then assets, shared resources, investments, taxes, all of that. Those themes are highlighted for Cancer for the next 20 years in the horoscope. We don't really use the outer planets in horoscopes, but I think that when there's these big energetic shifts with a planet like this, it's the transpersonal side of me has a really hard time not acknowledging that in the horoscope, even though we tend to just look at the personal planets. Because it's a shift of energy that we're all under in such a major way. So once we get moving into the month a little bit more, on March 5th, we are going to have a new moon at 20 degrees of Pisces. And again, this is hitting the area of the chart that has to do with the values, belief systems, higher education and learning, all the stuff that we started out talking about. And new moons are a great time for setting intentions. So if there's some intentions that you have around the way that you want to evolve spiritually, if there's a trip that you want to go on to experience another culture, this is a really good time to do that and set intentions towards that if that's something you're trying to call in. Another thing that we have going on shortly after that is that around March 9th, so right before this, or the 10th, I think it's on the 10th. I'm getting a little bit off on my dates just because I'm using the universal ephemeris. So the timing is a little bit different because it's not Eastern or Pacific time. So I think it's the 9th that Mercury is entering Pisces. It shows up in the universal time as the 10th, which is the same day as that. I think I said that date wrong too. I said March 5th. It's March 10th that we're having the new moon. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. I should probably have this be my last video because I'm going to keep making mistakes if I'm not careful. So March 10th is the new moon, and then we have Mercury entering Aries. Mercury is going to be in Aries until May because we're going to have Mercury retrograde in Aries starting April 1st. So we start the whole Mercury and Aries story on the 10th. And this area for you, Cancer, that you're going to have Mercury influencing for that entire time is going to be your area of career. Mercury in Aries is a very intense energy, and Aries squares Cancer. So it already creates a lot of tension for Cancer. The way Cancer approaches things and initiates things is very different from Aries. Aries is very direct, and assertive in a way that can sometimes be very hot and abrasive. And Cancer, it's interesting. Cancer is more passive with a lot of the way that they communicate, but it can still, it's like a direct passive, not passive aggressive though. There is actually some passive aggressive with Cancer, but there can be, Cancer is more passive. Let's just say that. Aries is more direct, Cancer is more passive. And I think that the benefit of Mercury in Aries for Cancer is that hopefully it'll help you be more direct and more confrontational. I feel like every Cancer I know is really confrontational, but I also watch a lot of passive energy come out of Cancer where I'm kind of like, so I think it just depends on the Cancer makeup. I mean, we all have different astrological makeup. This is very general. But in the career area, having Mercury and Aries here, there's going to be a lot of, intense conversations at work. It's going to be intense and triggering because we have Chiron conjunct the North Node here too. And so the journey for Cancer here is also having to heal maybe some egoic wounds around your place in the world and how you feel the work that you do in the world is received by others, and how that influences or impacts your identity to self. Mercury in Aries could also mean that you're at the, like for where it's hitting in the chart, could also mean that you're at the receiving end of a lot of aggressive, direct energy that you're then having to work through how you confront that, how you articulate that. And it's going to ramp up in April when we're in the Mercury retrograde. The end of the month, you're going to be in the shadow period of it. It's going to start, and then the retrograde is going to come through. And April is going to be a really intense month for Cancer when it comes to work because of that. So it's just the stage is getting set March 10th. Yeah. Not going to be fun. I'm sorry. It's going to be intense. But, hopefully constructive conversations can come out of some of the confrontation or the conflict. Shortly after this new moon with Mercury entering Aries, Venus is going to enter Pisces. So on the 12th, we're going to have Venus entering that area of the chart that has to do with values, beliefs, these kind of spiritual questions that you might have. And Venus here is really positive. It's really positive for, feeling more in alignment or choosing things that feel more in alignment for you on a deeper level with your values. It's also really positive for maybe building positive relationships around those experiences. Venus here, there can be a wanderlust kind of feeling where we need to experience a change of scenery that kind of ignites us in a deeper, more passionate way. Maybe we do need to go on that eat, pray, love journey or go on that trip that kind of gets us out of the mundane. There's definitely a quest to get out of the mundane for Cancer during March. Let's see. I talk with my hands a lot. We have after that, the sun is going to enter Aries around the 19th. And so we enter Aries season, the spring equinox happens. And, again, Aries squares Cancer. So there's some tension there. And it also puts a big emphasis on your work and the work that you're doing. I think the sun in Aries, I mean, the sun is exalted in Aries. It's a really positive energy. It's a great energy for work. It's just hard in the sense that Mercury's here and that we're entering this shadow period with Mercury leading up to the retrograde. So it's one of those things where it's like there's going to be a lot happening at work, and there's probably going to be some good days where you feel like a lot's happening, action packed, we're getting things moving, and then it's going to be like some triggers, some conflicts, that didn't feel good. We gotta move through that, and then you're going to be feeling that wanderlust energy on top of it, where you're just going to be like, can I just go do something I want to do that's fun, that's more in alignment with what I want? If you're in a job situation that you really love and you feel really passionate about, and it feels in alignment with your values and you're getting to have these kind of like experiences that you really want, I could see this being a really positive time for you. But there is a lot of tension here still astrologically. I think that it's going to be positive though in terms of the career stuff. It's just there's still going to be some challenges to work through. The 23rd, we're going to have Mars joining the Pisces party. And then on the 25th, we're going to have a lunar eclipse in Libra. So the lunar eclipse is going to happen at 5 degrees Libra, and it's going to be highlighting that area that's opposite the career, which happens to be our home and family area. And, the nodal axis of Aries and Libra, there's an emphasis. The story of this nodal axis for all of us as a collective is the I, the self, versus the other, the partner. And when I say versus, I don't mean it in a conflict way. I know versus kind of implies that, but I just mean in terms of that's the polarity. There's the balance, the integration of polarity that we're working on. And so with this eclipse, that's, the individuation of self with partnership. Who am I to myself? And then how do I relate that to partnership? And in the Cancer horoscope, it's the 10th house of career and the 4th house of home and family. So who am I to myself out in the world in my career? Am I doing the things that I want to do? Am I the person that I want to be? How does that affect my relationships at home and my relationships with my family? Is there any unresolved trauma from the past in my family that I'm working out myself that influences who I am out in the world? Those are themes that come up. I think if we think about like our healing, there's people that are still operating in adulthood from a place of trying to please their parents, right? So you might be making choices with your career, your education on what would my father or my mother think of this choice, not necessarily what would I think or does this make me happy, but what would they think? And that could be a very 4th house journey. What does the family think? Or even, let's get away from the parents and think about our kids. Well, what do our kids need from us? And am I like one of my friends who has kids, like his legacy that he's leaving for his kids with his career, like that's all tied up in that. It's really important. My parents are that way too. Like my mom and my stepdad, they really care about what they're building for their kids. And that can be that axis, the 10th house and 4th house. So there can be this kind of like, what does my family think about what I'm doing? Am I fulfilling what my family would be proud of me for? And that could be the parents, but it could also be, what am I doing for my kids? What am I leaving for my kids? Who am I to my kids? Those are things that are emphasized. There's also the opposite, where like maybe we came from a family where we didn't have things that made us proud, like maybe our family was really disappointing to us. Maybe we came from poverty, or we came from people that didn't share the same values that we ended up having as we got older. And so maybe what we do out in the world is an act of rebellion against where we come from. And so everything we're doing is like, well, am I the opposite? It's like people that grew up in really conservative families. And so they pull really hard into the liberal circles, and anything and everything that reminds them of that background that's traumatic, they're pulling the opposite way. They're like, my career and who I am has to be all the way over here because I'm fighting this past so much. And so those are themes that can come up during this eclipse. And those are opportunities for healing too, because the Aries North Node wants us to get really clear on what we want and who we are for ourselves in a way that's healthy. But it's not necessarily meaning to throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of our relationship. So, we don't want to get so selfish and so self-oriented that we ice everybody out and we don't have healthy relationships with other people, including our family, right? Unless our family are people unless they're people we need to cut out and get rid of because they're that toxic, that's another story. But when it comes to just our own pursuits, like if there's people in our lives that are willing to support us and love us through that, we don't need to completely ice them out just because we're trying to figure our own stuff out too. There's a lot of people that are supportive of you regardless of the changes, right? Friends and stuff that are like, yeah, like you should go move to that country or do that thing because that's what's going to make you happy. I've got you. I'm still here for you. Like those are the people that are worth holding on to, even when you need to do something super self-oriented, right? My family's always been really good with that. I'm really fortunate. I have a family that's been really supportive of me wanting to live in other places and not always be present during family things. And I have a really great family that I feel, like if I needed to move home and be there, I have that option always. And I'm really lucky for that. And I'm really lucky that I also have a family that supports me in pursuing wanting to be out in the world somewhere else in a different way. Cause I know not everybody has that. So that's kind of an example where like, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like I pursue things that are self-interested, like I don't want to live where my family lives. And that puts strain on my relationship with them because I'm not there. Like I'm not there for a lot of these memories. But my relationship with them is like, even though I'm doing that selfishly because, you know, I want to live where I want to live, my relationship with them is really important to me. Like, I'm not going to just not make a point to go spend time and see them and be with them. I talk to my mom almost every day on the phone. I talk to my aunt, my dad. Like, I'm very, you know, communicative with them because I value them. So even though I don't want to live where they live, I don't want that to harm my relationship with them to the extent that, you know, we don't talk or anything. So to me, that's like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, like maintaining those relationships while still pursuing things that are good for you or fulfill you, right? And I think that can be really healthy when we know how to balance that out. Um, you know, same thing with your kids, right? So it's like if you're making decisions for your kids, but your kids see you doing things that make you unhappy, you're sending a message to your kids that in order to live a life that's good, you have to do things that make you unhappy. And sometimes it's true. There is a lot of things in life we have to do that are not great. You know, it's like we make a lot of sacrifices, but it's important that those sacrifices we're making, you know, we are doing not just for our kids or just for what we think they're going to, because we don't know how they're going to look at it. We don't know how they're going to interpret it, right? We also, our kids need to see us making ourselves happy too. They need to see us doing self-care and good things for us too. We want to set those examples too. We don't want to show, you know, our kids that just everything is always miserable and self-sacrificing unless we're in a position where we don't have any other choice. I know a lot of people don't have that choice, but you know, I look at a lot of decisions that both my parents made in different ways, and I can see the way that impacted me. Like my mom made a lot of sacrifices for us and she didn't really have a choice, but I saw her so miserable and so unhappy that it made me never want certain things because I just saw it as being miserable and unhappy. But I learned later that those things didn't like, that's not why she was miserable. Like she was miserable for other reasons that didn't have to do with those things, but it made me think that those things were negative. And then I watched my dad be really selfish in certain ways, but he was happy. Like he did certain things that made him happy. And I was like, well, that's what I want because I want to be happy, you know? And I think that if I had seen my mom be more happy in her life in certain ways, there's certain aspects to life that I wouldn't associate with negative things, you know? So it's kind of like there's a benefit to your kids seeing you be selfish in certain ways at certain times because they want to see you happy too, right? But there's also a value in sacrificing and making compromises, especially if you don't have a choice because you have to make money or support, you know, your family. So those are just, that's the Cancer axis of this eclipse. Those are the things you're asking yourself. And you might not have kids and you might not have to worry about those sacrifices with your family, but you might have to think about your job and your home and how what you're doing out in the world impacts the home that you have. Do you have a home that you're happy with? I know for a long time I lived in places that I was not happy with, and it was really detrimental to my mental health. And I spent 6 years in an apartment that I hated, and I also spent 9.5 years in a city that I didn't want to live in. And there's something that that does to you spiritually and mentally, where it feels like what you're doing out in the world, like your career and the work that you're doing is never good enough because you're not happy with where you are physically in your home. And I've learned that that is something that I can't do anymore. Like it's, I know if I don't have a choice, that's one thing. And back then I didn't have much of a choice. I did, but it was like inflation and it was harder in certain ways. I mean, it's still hard, but I think I've learned that if my physical surroundings, the city that I live in, the town I live in, and the physical space that I'm in makes me feel good, then the work that I do out in the world is going to feel even better because I'm going to come home somewhere that I feel good. And if I'm coming home to something that I don't feel good in, whatever I'm doing out in the world is going to feel like I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing that for? And that's that balance. And that's more of the personal journey with that because I don't have kids and I don't live where my family is, you know? So for me, that's kind of been what that 10th house, fourth house journey is my own relationship to that, you know? And right now, like I am in an apartment again. I never wanted to be in an apartment again. I was really happy to be a homeowner. I never wanted to own a home. That was something that my partner wanted. And because my partner wanted it, it became my dream too. And then once we had it, I was like, I never want to lose this. I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of myself. And the fact that I had to leave that and start over and move into an apartment again was terrifying for me. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to find an apartment that I like. Like everything in my price range is awful. Like it's terrible. And then I found this apartment and my friend happens to live upstairs and it's beautiful. Like it's such a cute apartment. And I know it's something that like my teenage self would have died over. Like I would have loved to live here. It's like one of the best apartments I've ever lived in terms of just cuteness. Like it's really cute. It's really adorable and it's got a lot of charm. You know, it's old and it's not perfect, but it's got a lot of charm. And I'm really grateful. Now I just need a job so I don't lose it. But like I know once I start working and I come back to this, it's like it's a great place for me to start over and work towards those goals of having, my own property again. But I didn't think it was possible for me to move back into an apartment and feel good. So those are all things like I'm just sharing that are kind of part of this Cancer journey of home and job and family and what we do out in the world, because that's a big emphasis for you in March. If you would like to book a personal reading with me, I have opened my books for readings and I am offering them via Zoom or over the phone. You can look in the description and you'll see my email down there, but you can email me at analisa6@ladyofleisure.com. I do these horoscopes every month if my life is in a position where I can. And I'm hoping to continue to do readings. So if you want to book a personal reading, just shoot me an email. We can book it. All right. Good luck. I'll see you next month.